Shana Tova, Shana is not only a year, it's also a period of time, and it's also connected to the word shinui, or change. Innovation is part of the greeting. Because when we experience a new season, a new period of time, it comes with it certain newnesses, certain opportunities and possibilities that perhaps we didn't see before. And not only that, Shana also has a meaning of learning, as in Mishnah, or Vishinantam Levanecha, that we should teach it to our children. So when we wish someone a good year, a Shana Tova, we're wishing them a year of changes, and a year of changes that are powerfully informed and inspired by scholarship, by learning, by new knowledge, by research. So when I wish you a Shana Tova, I mean it in the comprehensiveness of the word. Last night, I was teaching my Wexner Leadership Fellows in Baltimore. And after we did our text work, right after supper, I said, we're going to do a little exercise because this is a great time of the year for leaders. We get to think self-critically about ourselves. So I said, we're going to write our al-hate list, our sin list of leadership. Take a few minutes, write down 3 al-hates, right? All that Olympic chest beating that we do on Yom Kippur. What would happen if we were responsible, if we were writing the script as leaders? So I want to share with you some of what they shared with me. For the sin of judging those I serve, for the sin of not delegating, for the sin of delegating and not really meaning it, for the sin of not really listening, for the sin of being satisfied with mediocrity, for the sin of not telling the truth, for the sin of running boring meetings, for the sin of putting the Jewish community before my family, for the sin of not worrying enough about all the Jews who are not in our organizational structures, and I'll add, for the sin of not being inspiring. What does inspiration mean? What does it mean to inspire? If you looked at synonyms of the verb inspire, to affect, to elevate, to enliven, to exalt, to stimulate reverence, to stimulate energy, to stimulate ideals, do we feel inspiration from the Jewish organizations that we're a part of? Do we feel inspired by the leadership of those organizations? Do we feel inspired at board meetings? Do we feel inspired at synagogue services? I actually think that the Jewish community is suffering from bankruptcy, a vacuum of inspiration. And I want to read to you something that I did with some of the professionals a little bit earlier today. This is really a magnificent campus, and I had a wonderful afternoon with some very talented and thoughtful people. I want to read a quote from Rabbi Abraham Isaac HaKohen Cook, who was the first chief rabbi of Palestine before Israel became a state. Rabbi Cook, in addition to his leadership role, was also a mystic, and so it's always a good time for Kabbalah, I think. And I want to read you something that he wrote about inspiration. Everything teems with richness. Everything aspires to ascend and be purified. Everything sings, celebrates, serves, develops, evolves, uplifts, aspires to be arranged in oneness. Rabbi Cook powerfully believed that inherent in the human condition is the need for meaning and the need for ascendance. We crave inspiration. We want to be inspired. We're disappointed by mediocrity. And yet sometimes we lack the discipline and the energy to get ourselves there or to motivate others to get there. How do we get there? How do we get to that lofty place? Well, I'm going to speak briefly about 5 things that I think are necessary within the Federation community and within Jewish organizational structures generally. Relevance, integrity, warmth, vision, and literacy. And we'll begin with relevance. In my position, I read a lot of demographic and sociological studies, and I certainly encourage any of you in leadership positions to do the same. We have, thank God, a great deal of information about the American Jewish community. And one of the striking things we're learning now is that the millennial population, we call Generation Y, is deeply disenfranchised by Jewish organizations. By organizations generally. It's not only in the Jewish community. Reboot has done a study of the millennial population. One is Jewish, one is general. And what people find is that young people aren't really interested in institutions. They define membership in their own ways. And in fact, they're tired of going to parties that someone else has planned and executed. They're running parties themselves. As Brad himself spoke, there's a tremendous amount of energy and enthusiasm, involvement, and connection to Jewish life, but it's not necessarily institutional Jewish life as we know it. And we risk a great deal by not paying attention to the trends in this population, because many of them feel that institutional life in Jewish America is irrelevant. It's just not meaningful. It doesn't speak to them. It doesn't resonate with them. It's too political. It's too much about money. It's not meaningful. And what I've noticed in my conversations and work with young leadership is that they're interested in one thing about the Jewish community. For all of the alphabet soup of abbreviations in our organizations, they're interested in one letter, the J in Jewish. And we haven't done enough to explain it. Why be Jewish? I spoke at Washington 15, the Federation of Young Leadership Conference in DC, 1,500 students, and I posed this question to them. Why be Jewish? Can you give the elevator speech for your Judaism? Why are you here today? What does it mean to you? It happens every once in a while that you meet someone who was at a conference. And in March, I was on a bus in Boston, also working with the Young Leadership Group, and a young man came up to me and said, do you remember that talk you gave in Washington? I said, yeah. He said, remember you posed that question, why be Jewish? Yeah. He said, for the past year and a half, I have not stopped thinking about that question. That is the question that I have to answer in my lifetime. I can't really believe it without it. We have a challenge to think about relevance. And that's difficult. I was reviewing your strategic plan, and I was very heartened to, yes, I read your strategic plan. And I found it immensely interesting and hopeful, and challenging and demanding. And one of the things that struck me was this sentence: the world has changed, and federated organizations must adapt or risk irrelevance. I don't know that we're ready to risk irrelevance. I don't know that we're ready for that outcome. And one of the things that's very striking is that when you talk to people about charity, it's not about process, it's about outcome. If there are people I need to feed, if there are people who need housing, if there are children who need schooling, that's an outcome-driven conversation. But we, in our community, have made these process conversations. How do people feel about their giving? How do people feel about this? As opposed to saying, to be relevant, we have to be outcome-driven, and we have to be deeply engaging and meaningful. And not only to the people in this room. The people in this room need this the least. It's all the people who are not here. And if you've been studying them or reading demographic studies that have been done in the past 10 years, all around major metropolitan centers, somewhere between 50 to 52% of Jews in America are not affiliated with anything Jewish, not one Jewish organization. Where are they? What are they doing? What are they thinking? How is Judaism meaningful to them? The second is integrity. And why do I say integrity? Because I think we're still living in the shadow of a lot of high-profile scandals. Thus I wrote my latest book, Confronting Scandal. And about a month after the Madoff affair, we had a conversation. We did a text learning with our Jewish communal professional staff. And I asked them, did Bernie Madoff take anything from you? And they laughed at me. I'm a Jewish communal life, or I'm Jewish education. You think that he had anything to take from me? And I repeated the question, did he take anything from you? And the answer is, he took something from all of us. He took our credibility. He took trust in our communal organizations. He took away commitments to stuccoed. And we have to work all that much harder to repair our integrity. Jews have been involved in some very high-profile crime across denominations, across the world. Israel, this is the first time in Jewish history that a former prime minister and president of Israel, who served at the same time, have both been indicted of very serious crimes. Remember the commercial? We answer to higher authority? I don't know that we're answering to that higher authority, but we're doing enough institutionally to make sure that ethical structures are in place so that we can maintain a posture of integrity in the world, because that's been a hallmark of the Jewish people for 4,000 years. There's got to be outreach, and there's got to be a strengthening of ethics throughout our school system and our institutions.